After years of road racing at a Cat 1 level, I've almost entirely shifted to a mountain bike focus over the course of the pandemic. Racing disappeared, and I decided to try something new, and I absolutely love it. That said, I'm completely confused about something, and I want your input. I've always been a high-power athlete at around 180 pounds and 360 to 390 watt FTP. So that's a big athlete, and that's a lot of power that they're putting out as well. But my power data at cross-country races is shockingly low. I say shockingly low because I feel like I've never done such hard efforts, but even my normalized power is only about 80% of FTP after 90 minutes of racing. So I know mountain biking has coasting and technical terrain that requires coasting, but even though I have that coasting time, I'm completely exhausted. And while I could absolutely do a normalized power of my threshold in a 90-minute crit or a road race, I can't even fathom doing that in a mountain bike race. So why is this? Is this normal for everybody? How do I raise my power in an XC race? This is who wants to jump in first on this one? Sophia, actually, you should probably kick us off because you mentioned even like intensity factor of a recent race being somewhere around 0.8. Was that right?
Yeah, like this past Sunday race, I put in a big training week coming into it and had a big load, and I was like, we'll see what happens. And I think my IF score was 0.81 for the cross country race. But if I go back and I look at early season race, Cactus Cup, 2.5 hours, intensity factor of 1 somehow. And I set a bunch of new like power PRs on the mountain bike. So, it's so course dependent. I think one of the things you have to also realize in mountain biking is that power isn't the whole story. And I think we get watts per kilo, watts per kilo, watts per kilo. But in a mountain bike race, it's not so cut and dry. You have climbs that aren't all the way consistent. You have berms where you most of the time actually like have to stop pedaling, or you have to do a lot more accelerations on and off. You're fighting for wheels a lot more. Yes, you have the descents that you're not pedaling, and you have a bunch of technical sections where maybe your power isn't as high. And, he says that when he finishes, he finishes super tired as well. So the best thing you can do is just become a better rider in a way, and maybe analyze in the race, like analyze your climbs, because that's really where the power, the climbs and the flats, that's really where you can put lap to lap, power analysis and see like, okay, in this climb, I was able to do X amount of watts and it took me this amount of time. And then, maybe the lap before, like, okay, in the climb, I can see how I went a little bit slower, and that's like the time difference. But yeah, I mean, it's so hard. Like in mountain biking, power gives you a ticket to the party, but it doesn't mean anything, because if you don't know how to descend, if you don't know how to, properly take turns, or how to use your efforts properly and gauge the amount of times that you're going over the red zone, which in mountain biking, it's so much more about on-off efforts, that if you are not used to, doing 40 efforts at zone 6 that lasts over 15 seconds, your power is just going to start dropping and dropping and dropping. So I think the best thing that you can do is, ride mountain bike trails more, ride them fast, and maybe find a local little course that you can do where you go out and do, a 40 to a 60-minute effort where you're doing 4, 5, 6, 7 laps, and really practice that time consistency within your race. And don't worry so much about power, but just look at time, because that is really, you could have one that has really high power, but your time was low because you were just sprinting really high efforts and then slamming on the brakes on all the descents, where maybe if you do a lap where you're a lot more smoother in your transitions between climbs and descents, you'll find, I was actually, 20 watts less, but my time was 20 seconds more. So I think, don't look at your power when you're racing mountain bikes, because you should be going hard enough that, you're not looking at your Garmin.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you say, Russ?
Yeah, I think Sophia kind of touched on it a little bit. In mountain bike racing, you're rarely riding at or near your threshold, it's either like you're doing 0 watts or you're doing 450 watts. And like I just looked at my file from the race yesterday, and I spent 25 minutes over VO2 max, which 25 minutes in a 90-minute effort, that's quite a bit considering maybe a third of the race you were coasting. So I think like we've all done VO2 workouts, and even when you do a VO2 workout that's just 15 minutes of intensity, you see that power fade, where at the end you're sometimes barely milking out your threshold just to get through the workout. So I think that, I mean, essentially that's what mountain biking is. You're doing these really hard, high efforts, and inevitably your power is going to have this sort of drop off. And I think that's where you see the average get near or lower than your threshold, is just because of the nature of the effort. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can work on to improve that. But at the end of the day, I think mountain biking isn't a power-based sport. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's more, as Sophia mentioned, just being smooth, efficient, and fast. Like I've followed enough pro racers that you see different racing styles, and someone like Jeff Kabush, he's so smooth everywhere and he never looks like he's trying. But I bet his normalized power is much higher than someone who's sprinting all the time just because of the way he does his efforts out there. So a little bit of it is rider dependent and racing style, but I think at the end of the day, most mountain bike efforts, you will see your normalized power kind of be lower than your threshold or right around it.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about Jeff as a good example, past podcast guest as well, when you say that he's like probably able to drive a higher normalized power than somebody who's just sprinting out of every turn, is that like, why is that in your opinion? Of course, you're not Jeff, but why would you think that would be the case?
Yeah, I think because he's just following him, he's super smooth and efficient with where he uses his power. So a lot of times we call it the Jeff Kabush sag, where he'll be like a bike length off the back and he's just kind of doing his own race, but he's still in the front group. And I think that's because he knows where he wants to use his power. And so he's either on or off more so than sprinting, grabbing brake. And when you do that, I think that drops your normalized power, whereas being steady and consistent kind of helps keep it higher. It'd be interesting to see. That my theory might be wrong, but I would feel like his might be a little higher than the average racer just because of his style.
Yeah, we need Jeff to come out and do the next round in Fayetteville. Jeff, we're asking you to do that. So come race so then we can analyze your power file in relation to others.
Yep.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.